You know what's awesome? The Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve. And you know what can sometimes, for new users or experienced users, be a little confusing, overwhelming? In this video, I'm going to walk through some important foundational information about using Fusion. Now, we're actually not going to use Fusion that much in this video. We're going to talk about the different ways you can get into the Fusion page from the edit page. We're going to talk about that main interaction between those pages, how it works, and we're going to talk about some extra ways to either bring in media to the Fusion page or to sort of communicate a reference back to the edit page when you're working in the Fusion page. Even if you've dabbled or used Fusion a bit, we're going to cover lots of stuff. So there might be something that even some like regular Fusion heads don't know. Let's start pretty simple. I have a blank timeline here. For reference, this is a 1080 full HD timeline. And if this timeline is completely empty and I click this button to open the Fusion page, okay, we see the Fusion page. I go back to the edit page. Nothing has happened. But if in the Fusion page, I make anything, I make a plain background node, I make a text layer or a text plus node, anything, if I make this like a green background node, you'll notice it also made a media out node. And now if I go back to the edit page, wow, our screen is green. And we have a Fusion composition here on our timeline. And then now at any point with my playhead over that Fusion composition, if I press this button for the Fusion page again, now we are back in that node tree we made. Now this Fusion composition sort of object, you also have access to in the effects library under toolbox effects. You have adjustment clip and Fusion composition. I'll probably reference adjustment clip later. But for now we have this other Fusion composition option. And if you drag it right to the timeline, it lives there. You'll probably get this error right when you drag it on saying no frame available because you need to open it up and actually do something with it, like add in some text that says hello. Wow. Connect that up. If we go back to the edit page, wow, you have hello. Now that's what happened when we opened the Fusion page, just like with nothing on our timeline or nothing under our playhead. But what if we have a little video clip on our timeline? If our playhead is over a piece of media, then when we open the Fusion page, it will sort of start to build a tree for us. We have that media out node, but then we also have the media in node. I have two viewers here. I can press 1 or 2 to pull up either of these on either node. Right now they're the same because I haven't actually done anything. If I create something like a color corrector node, I pulled up this select tool search bar by pressing shift space, by the way. But if I do something like press the color corrector, pull down the saturation, then you can see the media in. I'm viewing on viewer 1 here, full color. It goes through the color corrector, media out, black and white. If I go back to the edit page, it's black and white. Now, something very interesting. Remember, this is a 1080p timeline. But this clip, if I look at its metadata, it's a 4K clip. And if I open this clip directly in the Fusion page, I can see both previewing the media itself and the media out. It shows my resolution up here in the corner. It's full 4K. You can even see if I grab something else like just this Resolve logo, right? Resolve automatically scales things to fit the frame on the timeline. But if I look at the metadata, it's 852 by 852 pixels. If I open this in the Fusion page, then it will bring in that media at full resolution, sort of pulling it directly from the media pool. So now this Fusion comp I'm working with is 852 by 852, and it handles that scaling after the fact, just like it does normally on the edit page. And if I were to create a new background node and hopped over to image, you'll see that the entire resolution for sort of this instance of a Fusion composition is that 852 by 852. This auto resolution is based on the resolution of the media that the Fusion clip lives on. But we can sort of override this. If I uncheck auto resolution and set this to 1920 by 1080, sort of full HD. That will be this background node that I can do whatever with. If I connect my logo to that, it will bring it in at the correct proportional size. So like that logo is now full resolution, but on a 1080 background. And if I connect that to my media out, I have functionally changed the resolution of this media we're working with, and Resolve will recognize that. If I go back to the edit page, then now it has scaled that down. This gets a little funky because if I look in the metadata, it still recognizes that that TIFF image has that original 852 by 852 resolution. But because of what I did to it on the Fusion page, I have changed the functional working resolution of that clip. And that working resolution is what the edit page looks at to sort of auto scale to fit to my timeline. But if I go back to this video example, 1080 to 4K can be a big jump, especially depending on what you're doing inside the Fusion page. Effects can get wild, they can get complicated, and they can start to bog down your PC. Now, for some effects, even if you are working on a 1080 timeline with full normal HD delivery, sometimes you will still want to process effects in 4K, especially if like you're cropping in on them after the fact, or depending on how you're dealing like with scaling to preserve detail, different things. But what if you just want to do everything in 1080, you don't want to waste any extra resources inside the Fusion page processing a 4K image that's going to get downscaled anyway? What do? You don't necessarily want to like re-render out like a 1080 like section of this clip, right? You still just want to like deal with the clip itself. Well, let's look at some other options. The first option that is valuable to note is that if you right click on an image and make it a compound clip, remember you can do this with an individual clip or any numbers of clips. With my playhead over this compound clip, you'll notice in the metadata that is now a 1920 by 1080 compound clip. And if I open that in the Fusion page, you'll see our working resolution is now 1920 by 1080. It's doing that edit page scaling process before we get to the Fusion page. So now if you start like adding text over it, if you just want to say a little something like, hi, maybe toss on a little overline. Why not? And you want to scale this up. And then you want to right click on center and modify with perturb so this hi is flying across the screen. Wow, if you go back to the edit page, you've got your hi flying across the screen. This can kind of be just like a little tip or trick about compound clips, but really it's just a workflow that you need to keep in mind. When you use a compound clip, which you could use for any number of reasons, if you bring that into Fusion, it is handling the scaling first. If I have a compound clip that has sort of crunched down my image, scaled it down to 1080, if I scale that back up after applying all these extra effects, I'm functionally back dealing with 1080 footage. Now, how well Resolve will handle that like downscaling and upscaling is down to the specific like scaling algorithms and all of that. But say if this was a clip I wanted to maintain highest resolution, and I wanted this text flying around, but I wanted a little closer to my face, I can always right click on a compound clip, open in a timeline, and now with that clip selected, I have my standard sort of transform controls. Now I can scale in here on that great face, scale in, sort of reposition. And if I go back to that main timeline, and even better, open up this compound clip in the Fusion page, that media in is now looking at the compound clip. Because remember, this compound clip is what I brought into the Fusion page. Inside that compound clip is the timeline where I can apply any other changes. So I scaled it up inside the compound clip, and then after that has been scaled up and packaged up, then I applied this other little like text effect on top of it. That's compound clips. Let's talk about another really cool feature that I don't see a lot of people talking about. I'm gonna come back just to this full 4K clip, but I'm also gonna grab just a little section of this screen recording as well. I will crop those both. And now check this out. I'm gonna select both of these clips, right click, and underneath make compound clip is make new Fusion clip. This is not the Fusion composition effect we created earlier. It's a Fusion clip, and that will sort of sum them down to one layer. And if I scrub, I just see that first video layer we had. But now, if I open this Fusion clip in the timeline, it automatically creates two media in nodes. And if I preview those, you can see it has both of those clips. It has brought those into the Fusion page for me. Now, I think there are a number of reasons this could be really powerful and flexible, but I think a big one of them is timing. Dealing with multiple different video clips, especially if you need to like shift them in time, doing that wholly in the Fusion page can get confusing and maybe a little overly complicated. But say you were doing like a relatively simple VFX shot where you had like explosions, so you had like media you were bringing in with the fires and flames and all of that. You could open up this keyframes window and zoom in and try to shift things in time here. But if you drop all of that into a Fusion clip, you can open this in a timeline as well and shift any of these in time and sort of like pause to make sure they're in sync, not pause, but like check to make sure they're in sync here. And then that will be reflected inside that Fusion composition. Additionally, you could build Fusion effects that reference multiple pieces of media and just drop those on a Fusion clip, and like Fusion will like know what's supposed to come into like different like media in slots. Fusion clips can get pretty powerful. But again, make note that because we did this on a 1080 timeline, both of these clips, once they are inside the Fusion workspace, are at 1080. So if we get to like extreme scaling, we'll probably start losing information again. But then we have another option, a pretty like new and exciting option too.
If you appreciate videos like this, you should visit sterlingsupply.co. This is my website where you can download dozens of presets, plugins, and effects for DaVinci Resolve. Many of these presets are completely free. Several are paid premium products, and website members also receive a bundle of those premium products along with exclusive extras like in-depth breakdowns of my newest presets. Why not check out Easier Ease, my free plugin for edit page animation, which automatically eases any keyframes made, and the paid Easier Ease Pro version adds the ability to mask and adds a customizable wiggle to your subject before animating its motion. My ongoing work is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Let me go back to where I just have these two full clips, and you'll notice these are both 4K. Now, brand new in, what was it? Was it 19.1? When did we get this thing? I'm not sure. We have a new thing to talk about, and that is referenced compositions. But just for those who are curious, there was one other option I'm going to talk about, but not really show off. Underneath new compound clip and new Fusion clip, we have new VFX Connect clip. This was the solution that Resolve had when Resolve and Fusion were completely separate pieces of software. This was kind of like, what is it called? In Premiere, where you can like send something to After Effects, like that sort of linked composition deal. It was kind of like that, where you could link media on an edit page timeline to just the full version of Fusion. And I mean, like, this does work. You can get the standalone version of Fusion. A VFX Connect clip would sort of create that link. And if you open Fusion, added your effects, did all that, then those updates would be pushed to that Connect clip in Resolve. But this isn't something I certainly use. And I'm sure if the people who are using this are probably like real legit cool pros who like need the full version of Fusion for their stuff. But we are talking about an option down here, create referenced composition. If I click that, it'll ask me if I want to name it. I'll just call it ref. It'll create that, and a few things will happen. Number one, we'll get a cool little icon just on this top clip. But also, into our media pool, we have this new thing here, labeled ref with that same little icon. Now, if I have my playhead over just this top clip, and I open the Fusion page, remember the behavior before was that it would just bring in this one clip at full resolution. Now if I do that, then we have those two media clips like what happened when we made a Fusion clip. But if I preview these now, the one big important difference is that now these are at full resolution. Now, pros and cons, whether you need or desire that resolution, but the other cool thing that this does is that it does automatically drag this, and now it lives in our media pool. This is something you could also drag and store in a power bin for quick access. And let's demonstrate. If I go in and just take these two options, slide one down over here and slide one down over here. Okay, reposition, make a little something or other, make a little something neat. This is okay. Let's do a little something else. On this first one, let's make this one black and white. Cool. Okay, wow, we have a really cool effect here, right? Yes. But these changes now are stored in this reference composition. So if I were to kind of start from scratch, pull in new versions of these video clips, trim them up. We have this screen recording. Underneath it, we have me again. And I believe this is how we have to do this. But if I right click, create another referenced composition, I'll just name this one 2 for now. This is the kind of redundant part I'm not sure if we need to do. But I created a new one, but I don't want to mess with this 2 one. I've already done some work over on this reference one. So now, if I think I can just select this first top layer. And if in my media pool I have reference selected, I'll have some new options down here, like link to referenced composition. If I do that with that ref selected, then it pulls that in, and you can see it does the same effect. And if on either one of these, I were to scale back in and change this effect in one location, it would have reflect that change in the other location. Now, these are the way they are because of how I ordered them in the timeline, right? If I put these in their other order, I don't want that, I want this, in another order where my face cam was on top, and then I made it a referenced composition, and I linked that to the reference clip, then now those images are switched, which one is coming into that media in 1, which one is coming into that media in 2, but the effects that they are applying to each of those are the same. Now, don't forget, we need to keep track of that important thing, resolution. If one of these video clips was 1080 and the other one was 4K, it would bring each of them into Fusion at their source resolution. Now, whether this automatic background would be set to 1080 or 4K might depend on which one comes in, maybe media in 1, maybe that sort of dictates that. So the big idea with this reference clip is for like repetitive effects like this. If you have something like a picture-in-picture effect that you want to be able to like tweak once and have it reflected all your other locations, if you have any single effect in multiple places through your video, if they are linked with reference compositions, if you need to change a color in a graphic from red in all of these to green in all of these, and they are otherwise the same graphic, if it's a reference composition, you hop into one of them, change it, it changes it for all of them. And the fact that these sort of live in your media pool is a big plus. You can store these in a power bin, always have access into them. Spoiler alert, I am planning on rebuilding my big, TikTok or YouTube Shorts sort of editing plugin on these so that if you customize it once, that customization will automatically be saved. Stick around for that. But saving these as power bins, and especially you can export these and share them, I believe, pretty sure, which is another really cool thing. But mostly you need to be aware of the pros and cons of bringing in a single full clip into a compound clip or a fusion clip, or a reference clip. Specifically, I think the big issue is how they handle resolution to know which one is best for you. Now, let's real quick talk about that adjustment clip, right? Because you can bring an adjustment clip into Fusion. Something like our standard color corrector, sort of pull down saturation. It will act like a normal adjustment clip. But there's another option, and that could provide you some cool timing control, but there is another option that I use more often. But that kind of gets back to getting media into the Fusion page, which we'll talk about real quick. But as far as how to just get into the Fusion page, the other thing I want to talk about is specifically dealing with Fusion effects on the edit page. I've talked a lot about stuff like if I grab this contours effect, which is an effect I really like, customize it, and add a little wiggle in there, scale it up or scale it down this way. This is a cool included effect in Fusion, but for Fusion generators or effects, titles, or transitions, if you have those on your timeline, you also have this little icon in the inspector. And if you click this, it will load sort of that instance of the effect into the Fusion page. And you can open it up. On a lot of these, you can see how they were made, or you could add, a node after the fact to further customize it and do whatever you want here. And then that change, because it is before the media out, will be reflected on the edit page. Now, this is also important because if I grab an effect, let's grab a Fusion effect. Let's grab something fun, like, I don't know, what's something I've done. Oh, I recreated this turbulent displace effect, right? So wow, if I drop that on a clip, cool, but something Fusion kind of does behind the scenes, if you use a drag and drop effect, let's check this out. If I open that in the Fusion page, then we have our media in coming in, and then it goes into our effect, media out. But we're at 1920. when you drag and drop an effect on the edit page, Resolve kind of functionally creates a compound clip for you. It looks at the clip as it appears on the edit page and works at that edit page resolution and then applies the effects to it. So you can, if you want a little wobble, you can do that. But a lot of people sometimes get confused because say I drop this effect, I know it's a fusion effect, but if I then open that effect up in the timeline, I don't see it, it's not there. Fusion effects live in their own little instance, and you need to access that by clicking this button on the fusion effect or the fusion generator, fusion transition to load that into Fusion. Cool, I'm pretty sure those are the ways to get into the working Fusion environment with some notes of how it affects the assets or media you are bringing in. But once you are in the Fusion page, if I just create another little Fusion composition, it's completely blank. What are our options to bring in more media, or maybe even to look back on the edit page from an existing Fusion composition? I dragged in this Fusion composition, so this is functionally working like a freestanding generator. And the first thing, which is super cool, I want to show off, is that if I pull in a media in node and preview it, there's nothing there. If I were to open up my media pool and drag in a clip, that would also be a media in node, but it was a link to the media pool to that clip. You can see this media source, media pool, the clip name is up here. If I drag a different clip, of course, if I dragged it right to my timeline, it would create a new media in. But if I have an existing media in and I just drag it over that clip name, then it will change what that media in is looking at. Ooh, that's a stern little face. Based on what you drag in here. And sort of this functionality is what some cool presets can be built around for creating sort of like drop zones to reference your media pool media. I've used it in some presets. Anyway, we're not talking about presets in this video. That's cool in media pool, but I have this blank one. It errors out by default if it's not linked to anything. The default is this timeline feature, but that is more of like what clip is it on the timeline. This was set to timeline when we brought in an adjustment clip, but that's because that's how adjustment clips work. But we have this other option, background. If I select that, then wow, we just have a black screen. Because if I go back to my timeline, this is solely like freestanding, right? But if I bring in another video clip, hop back into Fusion, look at that media, and now, oh, we see that video clip that was underneath it. And if I connect it to this media out, head back to the edit page, scroll through, and yeah, nothing happens because we are looking at one clip. The Fusion clip comes on, but the only thing in the Fusion clip is a media in node saying, show me what's in the background. But if I just create this color corrector node, pull down saturation, then this Fusion clip at this point, this Fusion clip at this point is functioning like an adjustment clip where, okay, it's black and white, then comes back out. And if we do something like add in a little text that pops up here as well, then that black and white affects everything below it. But you can have things above it as well. If you wanted this, everything goes black and white, that goes away, then the text goes black and white as well. If you were using this for like a single effect you were building, then it's probably like preference one way or another. If you wanted to do an adjustment clip or like use this media in feature. Again, I've run into this most making presets. The really cool thing that this sort of reveals is that anything that you would otherwise make an effect to drop directly on a clip, you can make a freestanding generator. For instance, if I open up my generators, I have this really nifty sort of like speed lines effect, right? It just like creates these lines over, maybe this isn't a great option. Ooh, yeah, something like this magnify effect that zoop pulls up a bar and it zooms in. This is zooming in on whatever is beneath it. And for magnify effects like this, timing is super important. You want something to zoom in at the right time. So if I made this just a Fusion effect that you drop directly on a clip, then you would need to actually like chop up this clip to make sure your timing on this in and out of the transition was correct. But if it is a freestanding generator, then it is super easy to reposition, stretch to be longer, all of that work. So again, that's how I've used this most of the time. But if you were creating something that would otherwise be considered an effect, but you know you want to be extra flexible with timing, it can be useful just to create a Fusion generator, pull in the media in this way to look at the background. Yes, which I have down here. Media in, I forgot, I was looking at this now. This is set to background, and you can affect whatever is beneath it. If you need to add any other assets, those would be affected here. This background, media in node, super cool. I think that covers the different ways to bring like video into these different options, but things get a little interesting when we talk about images. You can always drag whatever image right into the Fusion page, and it will create a media in node. It will bring those in at full resolution, and then you can, drop them over however you want. If you want to scale down, so you can have resolve and resolve, or I don't know what we're doing here. But another super important option to be aware of is the loader node. This will pull up a search bar, and I can select any image or image sequence, and it will just pull that in. And I did say image or image sequences, and something really to be aware of is that Resolve will auto recognize image sequences. So for instance, I have 3 different thumbnails I was working on here. I was working on I was testing thumbnails for a recent video. So I have thumb 1, thumb 2, and thumb 3. So if I select one of them and bring it in, if I'm previewing this, I see nothing because I am at frame 65. And then we can see we only brought in 3 frames of media. If I go back, then I'm looking at this first one, the second one, third one. Oops, I only wanted to bring in the third one. So I could either go and rename it again, or on this trim, I could just go to that third option, which means it would only live here at frame 0, and then boom, hit loop. And then now it exists for as long as my composition exists. This is really only an issue you should run into if your images have like sequential names, because Resolve will try to recognize that as an image sequence. But another name for an image sequence is a video. There are select use cases where you might want to bring in an image sequence with this loader node, but for most of the time it is bringing in images. We did browse to that specific location where this image is located, and you'll notice this thumbnail is not in our media pool. We bypass the media pool to pull that image directly. The pros and cons here are quite a bit more technical. Again, this is something that I use, quite a bit more in the world of creating presets, because it can be valuable to have like images as part of effects that you don't need to tell the user to like drop into their media pool and then like connect any other way. And in presets, you can set sort of like a relative location for this image sequence that sort of like stores it in one big bundle. The DRFX system, which I've talked about here and there, has a lot of power in that sort of area. This is especially valuable if you are creating anything you want to share with any other user. Because if I were to copy, this node tree and I just have media ins, if that other user doesn't have those exact piece of media in their media pool already, then this like effect will break in weird ways. It'll be gross and icky. This is a great way to make sure you are pointing to a specific file in a specific location. And wow, we've covered a lot. I thought this would be a little like straightforward video, but turns out there's a whole lot when it comes to the most foundational steps of getting into Fusion. Some of these things can come up when you are troubleshooting effects, and maybe you're running into weird scaling issues and you don't know why, and it's because like you dropped an effect on a compound clip versus a Fusion clip or some other way, or someone told you to use a Fusion reference clip and you didn't know what that was. But like I said, I do believe these are sort of like foundational bits of knowing the ways you can interact with media, knowing the ways the edit page interacts with the Fusion page, and sort of once you understand some of the nuance, you can use it all to your benefit. Specifically, I do think those Fusion reference compositions are super underutilized in the community. I'm not sure how much those will continue to like get beefed up or how much they will be highlighted by Resolve, but there is some cool functionality I'm interested in there, so stick around and maybe I'll talk some more about that. If you have any questions, of course, I know we covered some more technical stuff, leave a comment and I will meet you down there. But I thought it was high time we covered these specifics in a dedicated video to hopefully clear up a little bit of some of the lingering confusion of exactly what Fusion is up to. Don't even get me started on how this all then interacts with the color page. Wait. Actually, wait. Can I? Okay, one more thing. Pro tip for those who stuck around. Okay, you might know that in the sort of order of operations of Resolve, that Fusion happens before the color page. So if I were to hop into Fusion and add something like this text, I'm glad I'm talking about this. Add this text and go, cool. If I were then to take that clip into the Fusion page, that text would be over it. This is mostly for important reasons. Like if you are doing legit compositing in your scene, like you have all your elements, that is mostly work done on its own. And then the color grade needs to apply to like that entire scene as if it is one. What happens if we want to use a Fusion effect? Let me get rid of this text. To do something like, what do I want? Effects. Like just do a simple like picture-in-picture little effect. And then I shift this down in the corner. Boom. We wanted a little picture-in-picture effect, but we normally, if we had this next to a normal clip, normally we color grade our footage, right? So I have like a standard little grade. I normally pop on here, right? So normally when our footage is full screen, we apply this grade. But if I apply this effect right to my raw footage and then go to the color page, I have things like power masks and other things, and I apply this grade, it's going to be bad because that's way down in the corner now when my power grade is thinking I'm going to be in the center. So, using what we have learned, what do? Well, number one, I get rid of that effect. And once we do that, we see, okay, now we are dealing with the full screen again. So now that we just have this clip with our color on it, knowing we want to scale it down, so like resolution really isn't a priority, we can right click, make it a Fusion composition, then drag our effect on it, and now the image that it is scaling down and applying this mask to is the image that has that color grade on it. So now our colors are consistent and we can shift it down in the corner. This would be an area where maybe you would use a reference clip if you had this effect living there instead, and you could change the position of this picture-in-picture on your entire video on any of those. But when I do this, more often than not, I just have it on compound clip. And if I need to do something, I can copy that and sort of paste attributes, which include these Fusion effects or plugins. But that's another sort of workflow thing that I didn't think I would talk about. But that's an actual legitimate thing you should know. If you need to color grade a clip and then apply Fusion effects, compound clip is a great way to get you there. Okay, now I think that's more than everything. This can be a lot, but I think it's cool. Hopefully you do too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.